Hey guys, can everyone hear me all right? Thanks very much for coming. Thanks very much for coming. There's a list of thank yous, and so I apologise in advance if I forget anyone. Thank you to Tom, who's arranged the sound for this evening. I'm going to do some readings with some music that he composed in response to those extracts that I sent him. Thank you to Ross on the cameras. Thanks to Yuri at the back, who is my agent, to Piers and Joe from Arcadia, who are my publisher. I don't believe that Angeline, my copy editor, or George, my editor, are around, but they always deserve thanks. There's many people involved with bringing a book through to its culmination and its publication. Thank you to Emily, there selling books. And to Emily for putting up with me for the last few weeks while I waited for the actual day of it coming out. That's been much appreciated. And indulging my writing of embellished stories from my mid-20s. Thank you to all of you for coming. I'm just going to start with the readings, really, and then maybe say a few words quickly at the end. And I hope that you enjoy them and the music that Tom has so tastefully created in response to them. Should I say what I did? Do we all know why we're here? In 2013, I hitchhiked from New York to San Francisco. That was after a documentary project that I'd been recruited for fell through. And so it's what's happened to the American dream. It's the decline of the blue collar. It's the landscapes and the big sky. It's the timeless journey west. And these are 5 extracts, which I hope you'll enjoy. Thundering beasts, monsters everywhere, packs screaming, automobile howls, apocalypse passed through already, the stage left town. Horns fire, traces of light cut ribbons through the dark. One more then, another story, the last with that fire under me. Forgive me the remains of my youth, those years when all the time stretching out ahead seemed long enough to right all the wrongs, and with a body so full of life that nothing could ever be insurmountable. Concrete hems me in, high either side in an interstate grave, I-78. Down here I am an anomaly, have slipped through the gaps, the only thing left that has no place or purpose. Everyone else around is Interstate 78, between junctions 23 and 24, a license plate, an insurance policy, a verifiable mobile component in a social-economic landscape. Whereas I'm simply here, still full of all the imprecise cross-purposes that made us human to begin with. In the white floodlight burns the crimson flame of last creeping ivy, its wick stripped and the final leaves flailing in the wind of the traffic. Horsemen pass, they make their way through the clouds, they canter, horseshoes toll behind stars shut away beyond a sky of blue so cold. My boots hammer at the hard asphalt, all set rigid so that the only thing that moves in here is sound. It is deafening, is chaos, nothing but a highly regimented panic. A drum pounds out, keeps rhythm on this stationary motion like a flick book where each image is at every moment replaced by another all but identical version of itself. One car gives way to the next, and between them all they form hydras, rise up interstate. In the chill night, the highway breaks to a construction site. I climb in over concrete balustrades, onto the flatbed of the truck that hauled an illuminated sign out here. Bulbs the size of my head point to the traffic left. My body glows in the glare. The metal flexes a tocsin underfoot, and boom, 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 boom echoes from construction vehicles all around. Narrow spines carry conveyor belts, scoops, generators, an Ingersoll rand. I trail beneath the metal drum of a steamroller, the leaning arm of a digger, steel teeth of the scoop shining with the light, nibbling at tarmac. The traffic is at my side, the trucks slipstreaming one another, throwing great gusts of wind that break against my back. My thumb stays down. It is against the law to hitchhike after dark in America. That has nothing to do with the judiciary either. It is simply against all law of reason or probability to even try. This is the kingdom of fear, and those cars, they don't stop. These guys, they all know the facts, the statistics. 1 in 30 Americans are murderers. 9 out of 10 of those have beards just like mine. I might have made that up, but that's what statistics are for nowadays, with facts strewn all about and an impression of truth more valuable than any flesh-bone reality you care to name. Interstate keeps on into New Jersey, heads for Hoboken, but all the traffic is being pulled the other way, thrown out of New York, then bouncing back in. The roads all point backwards, travelators, the metropolis, its own force of gravity, constantly sucking up, in, throwing out, spitting humans like globules of metal-wrapped phlegm. Next one is The Way Out of New York City. At last I took the A train, crossed beneath the East River from Brooklyn to Manhattan, kept heading north into gathering dusk as we rattled through those subway stops like theatre sets, soot-stained girders that cut the platform into frames of 16mm film where the life of each New Yorker freezes in a passing instant. Carrying briefcases, department store bags, life's belongings and the fruits of a day's begging in a paper coffee cup. Dressed in suits, rags, duffel coats and fluorescent orange overalls smeared with oil. A man with a battery of upturned boxes and buckets sat with drumsticks on a small stool, and, without reaching my ears aboard that train, I knew he thrashed a rhythm for a city waiting to be left behind. Back inside the tunnel, opposite me I saw a reflection, saw a tired face, a bag leaning against the side of a stranger. I know that was the image, the body and the costume the other passengers saw as me, but I swear that I was never even there. At 181st Street I got out, walked those few blocks westwards where the Hudson roared ill-tempered against the traffic and the flooding wind. Bent forward, I made my way diagonally towards the uprights of the George Washington, shredding the air to 100 tiny gales where the frame of the bridge stood against the twilight, ominous, and the metal of it soaked with the cold of a winter getting underway. A few days earlier, I had looked up from Manhattan at the pencil-sketched outline of that bridge, faint against the clouds. Looking at it then, I felt nervous about what I was going to do when it finally came to crossing for the west, nervous about the prospect of leaving one life in a city, moderately comfortable, and starting another that would be less so. Even then, though, I knew that come this moment of walking up to the bridge, I wouldn't feel nervous. I'd just be walking. Up the banks I stumble, past thin grass and a dusty earth around the helter-skelter of the walkway. In front of me rests a mattress and dirty bedding tucked under a concrete column. Something is written, scrawled on the concrete just above the bed. Someone else's heartbreak. Valedictory love letters on the upright of major infrastructure, a bedroom breakup played out on the streets of New York, a scrawled marker pen writing sharp angles. I love you, forgive me baby, don't think about, just do it. I climb the long ramp to George Washington Bridge, hear the walkway underfoot and then the old drum of trucks pounding at the metal bit runway beside me. Hudson cries out from underneath, cries out Vespucci, Vespucci, Vespucci. Amerigo Vespucci. Don't doubt that is the most important name that ever was, the Italian who charted these United States and gave the whole continent his name. The maps that came afterwards, they now own this land, title deeds of geography and arrogant abstractions that reduce the earth to human purposes. Maps, but they are the ultimate annexation, both ugly and beautiful, evil and virtuous. They instrumentalize territory and make it ours to control. From New York and New Jersey, I made my way to Appalachia, to Ohio, and this was a group of anarchists living off-grid in the woods. Gradually, the night rises with the drum of rain on a tin roof and drips falling round the perimeter. All of us stand indoors, pressed together with our bodies warming the building. Someone sits off to the corner with a ukulele, and high-pitched strings pluck notes that bounce between the walls. A girl, sitting on an upturned tea box, begins to slap rhythm at its plywood walls, knocking out a tune as another man takes up a guitar and the three of them start to play, the voice of a crowd rising to shout out a chorus as the dancing starts up. Feet stamp floorboards, which spring up and down so that the cabin, windows aglow, begins to jump among the hills. Kuze comes towards me, a beer moving my way in an outstretched hand, knocked suddenly from his grip by the elbow of a man clapping his hands in hillbilly glee. The can flies through the air, then glug by glug spits itself onto the floor. Sammy looks around and asks with a smirk, "Where's that flag?" And he hands the beer up to me as Kuze turns and unties Stars and Stripes from the doorknob and throws it in a ball at Sammy, so that I watch the star-spangled banner become damp, red, white, blue, frayed ends pushed together through the puddle of beer as Lyndon rolls her eyes and Sammy grins. From the margins I watch, looking in on the scene of this community, built in its own heartfelt resistance to the country that swarms outside. Hoisted up in the apex of Sammy's elbow and forearm, Lyndon lets fly her feet from the floor, the two of them spinning together with an orbit of hands clapping all around. As the bottles of rum are passed and then begin to run empty, Kuze comes back to me, rattling a large jar full of silver quarters and greenback dollar notes. "Wanna play?" he asks. "Play what?" "It's a game. You throw dice, 6 dice. If they land 1 through 6, then you take the pot. Someone always wins before it hits 300. From my pocket I pull a dollar bill, and Kuze opens the stopper in the jar with a pop, his arm extending up to me as he drops at the knee in a pretend curtsy and invites my dollar for 4 plays. Face is turned to watch as someone else's dice rattle the room. 6 cubes of wood, each the size of a small apple. Maceo is up before me and whispering on the things, blowing numbers, dusting the wood with 1 through 6 prayers before he lifts his heel and sets them fly. Wood sets hard on wood for ping, pack, rat-a-tat-tat across the floor, bouncing 3 across cupboards and 5 for chair leg and 5, 5, 2 and 6. Maceo curses, clenches fist and spins in the agony of a near miss, as if he'd been out by only 1. I take my turn and the blocks of wood rattle through the cabin, off floorboards and doors, coming to land between the dancing boots as the crowd cheers one not so near miss after the next, and Kuze slaps a broad "better luck next time" palm against my shoulder, as if in welcome to Ohio. The rain picks up harder, grows into storm proper, as dice join thunder and water spills over the edge of the roof, yellow light pouring from the windows into the dark mass of trees leaning over and in around the cabin, as if in protection of its sacred space. I moved from there to Cincinnati, found a truck stop. There was a Punjabi truck driver who took me 2,000 miles to Arizona. This next one's from the Big Sky, which probably means somewhere in Oklahoma. Tires through water, noisy as hell. Interstate torn apart and sinking. Great plumes of spray jet from each truck wheel ploughing forward alongside us, like the bows of galleons smashing against waves, the roar of rubber amplified by rainfall pooled upon asphalt. Grey cloud is scraped in a comb-over for the blue sky, holes inside it opening fast to let through the sun as it goes, exploding in quickly appearing and disappearing bursts of light. The horn of another rig hits loud, crashes from 4 large klaxons above the cab, the horizon twisting wide in the curved metal. Brake lights flare like nosebleeds running down the droplets of our windscreen. Sun comes back again, and the wheels of cars under us turn in constant heaving calm. Their small shapes bounce as bowling balls between the lanes, as the skittles of clouds stack upwards, and where interstate meets sky they meet. From above, I watch another muted argument rage in the front seat of a family car, heading west with New York plates. We keep going. Palla drumming his hand to a sound I never heard. We keep going. And then there's a howl, and at last, finally, it is here. We've arrived. We're underneath it and all movement stops. A watch face, a well shaft, a stone falling fast upon us. Big Sky comes down, a palm outstretched, a meteor strike, a Navajo chief, Custer's last stand. Big Sky crashes on a land suddenly so small, freezes everything in the last movement of its final motion. It's ended. It's over. Each of us becomes only some breathing fossil of our old life. All trifling of humankind waits, the laminate for the courgettes we're driving west, the family feud from family holiday. It petrifies and then bursts, splits into only shards of sunlight through cloud breaking over such splendid, rotten, big sky. The state draws west ahead of the rig. Grass shortens. First it pales and then grey-bound patches of thicket peer as if a rash spreading amongst it. In the harsh geography rising, there come the first signs of industrial livestock, stepping slowly forward to replace the industrial crops. The shapes of cattle range across the land emptying of life, and then, gradually, black cows and bulls in turn change form and merge instead to become the outlines of hoists and swinging pulleys as the scenery of oil country begins. Another landscape appears behind pallors still in changing face. Old dead pines lean at the ground, white, split and wizened where the bark has fallen, or else charred black by lightning-strike fires, so that the trees are now all naked, disgraced, exposed, branches contorting desperately back in at the trunk to conceal a little of their lost majesty. Black-yellow oil tankers bisect Interstate, looking foul as they roll over the rails towards Texas, pulling to a halt and change crews at towns where water towers are the one thing still growing above the horizon's middle. The bales of hay that once waited beside the interstate, they are all gone. This final one is from coming into California. The San Joaquin Valley, which isn't much like the West Coast, and this next image is the final sign that got me to San Francisco. Jay drives, the exhaust of the Buick firing, snapping now and then behind us. We drive out into the San Joaquin Valley, where ponds of water lie green and stagnant with algae. The door panel starts rattling next to me. Oak trees lean over towards the road. Farm country opens. Metal barns and rusty old tractors are sucked like pacifiers by the dry mud that pulls them into ground. The San Joaquin River winds through with evening sun gold on its black back. Wind pulls it up into ripples. A couple pick towards the water's edge. She is pregnant, a white dress over her round stomach full of new life, while beside her he carries a garden cane fishing rod with a wine cork hanging from it. A hand reaches out and he guides her along a ledge. Evening shadows make their way down to the river, and into the river they dive. Up ahead are high hills, from over which the sunlight has turned the dirty windscreen pure white, trapping light inside each smear. Jay moves around, adjusts his visor. Can't see shit. He eases off the accelerator and we cruise along with the rest of San Francisco's returning traffic. That up there called Altamont Pass. Grassy hills loom big above us, covered in endless windmills and their stationary silhouettes. Altamont, I ask? Is that a Native American name or something? Don't know. We drive on. Horses running across a field with scrap cars. The setting sun drawing a bar along the top ledge of the mountain. Starlings swarm in a cloud, twisting out of the grasses, go up in smoke and then flail as a whip that beats the land. How's Modesto? It's alright. What do you do there when you're not working? You just hang out with friends? I don't have no friends. How come? I don't like to associate with other people. They just get me into trouble. What kind of trouble? Just trouble. You from Modesto originally? Nope. Where you from? I was born in Oakland, near San Francisco. I lived in Marseille, now in Modesto, been all round. The last month has seen me travel across his United States, and here is Jay describing 3 California towns as all round. The places that have staged the acts of his life, each within 100 miles of one another, and so too the highway on which we're talking. You ever go to San Francisco? Jay answers slow. Used to go there every week. I wait for stories for when Jay was young, carefree, when life was good and he was hanging out in San Fran just like I'm about to. Yep, went every week. 4 years ago, my son was in hospital. Oh, he's alright now? Jay looks into the white sunset, flat. No, he passed. We drive on in silence, crest the Altamont Pass. Jay doesn't move, legs apart, steering wheel between them, hand still rested at his bottom spur. The traffic gets heavier. Mountain bikes with purpose-made rain covers hang suspended from the backs of jeeps. Trailers pass us with boats and jet skis mounted on the tail of shining cars. All around, the Metropolitan returned from the rural playground back to the metropolis, leaving behind the agricultural hinterland where Jay and others like him spend their lives. Sunset whites out the windscreen, and can't see a thing, is all Jay says, over and over again.